you're having a good time here at WBS. I thank you guys for inviting us and inviting me. I can't even count the number of times I was here on stage, but I'm always very delighted and proud to be here and discuss with all you bright minds of crypto. Today a topic that probably is still somewhat between completely scammed and still going on, probably the last standing man in crypto, you could also say. It feels DeFi is on the one hand the only topic where people still have skin in the game, still money staked, and on the other side are at the same time completely lost trust in protocols that have been failing, stuff that has been, going bust. So I'm pretty confident that it is the future of crypto and that you cannot go back to it. It is inevitable that this will grow. In fact, I am building a metaverse right now. You can see here, I'm the founder of Space. We're building a social commerce metaverse that is inherently Web3 driven. So what we do is building easy to use template rooms for everybody to spin up a commercial experience in the metaverse, be it an event, a shop, an educational event, a music concert, an art gallery. Do what you want, and I think the very interesting part for me, coming from DeFi and lost my sleep in DeFi around 2-3 years ago, is that it's coming together. Now if you talk about NFTs, if you talk about the metaverse, and if you talk about anything crypto, there's always this DeFi element where in the back of the things you're building, be it NFTs or land or whatever, you're building collateralized assets, you're building money markets, you're building lending protocols, and that's the ground layer of what we've seen in crypto. So before we dig into it, I said who I am. Please give a little introduction of who you are.
Sure. I guess I'll kick off, guys. I'm Cal Evans. I'm the managing associate and founder of Gresham International. Don't judge me too harshly, but I'm an international lawyer. And for those of you who don't know me, I'd ask you to, get to know me a little better. I'm also proud to do a lot in this industry. I've also written the book, The Little Book of Crypto, started a training and educational program called the Cryptocurrency Academy. And I also consult with a number of governments internationally as well. Written the laws in some locations like Labuan, some other fringe laws as well in places like Malaysia, Estonia. I like to refer to myself as one of the originals in this space. I draw the distinction between lawyers that work in crypto and crypto lawyers. I'm definitely the latter. I don't just work in it, I live it, breathe it, understand it. So it is so great to be back here again. Thank you so much for the WBS guys for hosting this. And thank you so much for all of you for joining us here. And we're going to make this as fun as we can. I can already tell by the group just chatting to them earlier. This is going to be a good one.
Yep. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian. I'm the Director of FinTech at the Financial Services Regulatory Authority at Abu Dhabi Global Markets, which is a very, very long title. But anyway, basically what that means, what I do is my job is to try and grow the FinTech ecosystem in Abu Dhabi by ensuring that we can get good, responsible innovation that helps grow the financial industry and helps ensure that there's safe spaces for investment. I think similar to Cal, I'm a bit of a hipster. I was working in tech and finance well before there was such a thing as fintech. So spent a lot of time in the programming, had opportunity to buy into a mine in 2012, which I am still regretting not doing. But, such is life. And much of the focus that I've been looking at in the past couple of years has been on how do we extract the promise that virtual assets, crypto can bring, while still maintaining a responsible, safe environment that people can work in. Mm-hmm. So long as the promise of blockchain is restricted only to a small group of informed participants, it will never be able to grow and achieve its potential. And that's one of the reasons why I think this panel is so important and being able to reach out to the audience is so useful, to be able to explain why there's a need for regulation and innovation to work hand in hand, not to stifle each other, but to grow the industry and move forward.
Sebastian.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Sebastian Ramseid, and I'm currently the COO and one of the founding team members of a blockchain software company based in Stockholm called NIbiru Software. Right now we're building a game called Planet IX, or rather a metaverse, and it has this unique, I think, very strong theme of sustainability. But NIbiru Software is aiming to become a much broader company within the blockchain space. So that's me, and previously I've spent a long time in academics. I'm an engineer by training, and I've also spent a lot of time studying international relations, economic history, and other related subjects. So I come into this space just two and a half years ago, and it's extremely fascinating and exciting, and I'm planning to spend the rest of my career in this space. So that's me.
Thank you, guys. Let me actually kick off by asking you guys a question. Who of you is a cryptocurrency holder? Hands up. Oh, I think you're cheating here. I can't believe it's so little. But who of you has used DeFi products in the past? And who is still using DeFi products? Okay, that's a good crowd here. So we have a crowd of experts in the room, not only on the stage. That's very happy. What I saw this year is a lot of people just give up hope on these DeFi protocols, took out their money and say, let the market calm down first and see where this is going. I would like to start with you, Brian, because you brought up a great question in the pre-discussion for this panel to say what actually is DeFi. It's so many things, and kind of we are throwing around that term and assuming everything is decentralized, but what actually is the decentralized part in DeFi, and how would you define it?
That's an excellent question. I think one of the standard things that we think of in the blockchain space is decentralization means a decentralization of control. But is that really the case for DeFi? So if you look at the various protocols that are out there, is it really the case that the control of the direction of the protocols is decentralized? Or is it the case that typically there are several individuals who are driving the direction of the protocol as it moves forward? So maybe it's not control. Maybe it's execution. Is it that the building of the protocol is decentralized? Again, not really. If you go to the GitHubs and you look at who's actually contributing to protocols, it's really still the same people, right? It's often the same programmers. Some come, some go. So maybe it's the decentralization of services. Who's providing the execution? And maybe there's an argument there. So if you look at a DEX, right, the people who are running this on the smart contract that executes the DEX on the blockchain, that's decentralized. There's nobody who's holding that. Which, okay, that's true, but that applies to any smart contract. So one of the challenges that I'm starting to see about decentralized finance is whether or not people are starting to take that as a decentralization of accountability. And that's a very important point. So in the starting stages of a protocol, I think there is very much a mindset that's inherited from the tech industry of ensuring that you have limited liability. You are, as a developer, working to make sure that this is code that you're building, you are releasing it, people use it at your own risk. And I think in a small starting out protocol, that mindset is probably an understandable one. Whether it's reasonable or not, it's understandable. But once a protocol grows large, and protocols are starting to grow large, no protocol right now is actually really very large. I mean, if you look at DeFi, the total value locked at its peak was about 250 billion. That's 10% of Citigroup. And there are 30 global SIFIs. So DeFi has a huge runway and potential, but it's never been actually very large in that regard. Okay? So But once it does get very large, it's not clear to me that outsourcing accountability and saying that you use this at your own risk is going to be acceptable when grandma loses her life savings. So that's something that I think needs to be talked about within the community to really understand what is being decentralized in finance, all right, in decentralized finance. Because if we start moving towards decentralizing accountability, I'm not sure that's a path that we want to go down.
Yeah, I agree, Brian, and I think it's a very valid point to say, on the one side, there's always the people who build a protocol or a product. There's the users who are throwing their money in, and if shit hits the fan, losing their money. And then comes the regulators. Usually in crypto, that's happening after when stuff is going or went wrong all the way already.
Yep.
So, Kel, I believe you have strong opinions on that.
I do. I do. Look,
what do you think? How can we make it better is actually my question to you.
Hey, what if I was to tell you that the concept of decentralization right now doesn't actually exist? It's all smoke and mirrors. Let's put this into perspective, right? If you set up a group and you build a project and people go, well, we're decentralized. No, you're not. You're either one of two things. You're either a partnership or you're an unincorporated association. Just because you haven't incorporated a company anywhere doesn't mean that you don't have liability. Because if being able to not be incorporated and having no capacity to be grabbed by laws, let me tell you one thing. The cartels in South America would be the best example of this. If not being incorporated anywhere meant that the laws don't apply to you, congratulations, guys, do whatever you like. No, it doesn't work like that. And then we don't even get down the avenue of taxation or monetization or anything. Every tax authority will look at you and find a way to categorize you as something. And then people say, well, hang on, our token holders, they get to vote. Well, sorry, guys, that's also nothing new. I've probably sat in about 50 million shareholders meetings, and every one of them has a right to vote on what a company does. Maybe that's decentralized. So none of these things that people talk about in a decentralized world actually constitute to decentralized. As a governance protocol, they're just reinventing the wheel. They're just creating new ways of doing things that really exist. So actually, when we talk about decentralized, what we really mean, in my opinion, is peer-to-peer. It means that we're just doing things more directly to one another. And I think we've kind of mutated the term decentralized into peer-to-peer. We're actually working together. I can jump on a DEX, I can do things together. I can create a DAO, I can do things together. And I think if we shift our focal point to what is decentralized, and if we understand that the true nature of decentralization doesn't really exist yet, then we can do more to protect ourselves. So when regulators show up, or when people go through the concept of, or the idea of forming something, they do it properly. They do it right. They give people the protections they need, but they allow people to take the risk they want. Because really, again, part of this is the risk-reward matrix, right? I don't want somebody breathing down my throat. I don't want a big organized corporation because I don't want to run it. There's a million ways you could do that. There's a million different ways you could structure that. So building your governance protocol doesn't mean that you're choked up. It means that there's some very cool ways of doing it. And for me, when we create a DAO or a decentralized group, we create it in a very specific way. It's marrying the risk with the governance protocol, with the ability of people to deal with each other directly. And really, that's what decentralization in a nutshell is. And you can do all of that cool stuff within a lot of existing frameworks and meet all of the obligations you need while, dare I say it, still bringing the sex appeal of really what people want with decentralization. So that's my kind of 2 cents worth.
Very good point. Sebastian, what's your take kind of on best practices on how to really run decentralized or build decentralized organizations that are safe for the people to use?
So yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have the perfect answer right now. I do think that the point about what we're actually building is peer-to-peer system is very valid, and to do that, DAOs, the blockchain, tokenization, and DeFi are important tools, and they will continue to become more so in the future, I think. I mean. One thing that has struck me when I've been watching the carnage striking DeFi in the last year or so is that this space has a lot to learn from the history of organizational theory, from the history of finance, from the history how people have organized themselves previously. And so I think the space should do that, should look at the history of organizational theory and learn from that. We're not going to reinvent the wheel here. We have new tools, we have new infrastructure to build on, but we haven't invented new laws of physics.
That's a very good point, yeah. And I mean, to a large extent, I gotta say, I mean, you know, we're sitting here discussing kind of a bit nerdy topics on what is decentralization, and we coming kind of all from this builder's perspective. I would assume many of you are builders as well, but at the end of the day, we are kind of all investors, and I mean, fair deal. We are in it for the money. I actually keep saying crypto people are pretty simple people. If you give them a way to earn money, they start to like you. If it's money combined with fun, they will come back and like you more. So, you know, kind of that's where we all coming from. So greed is a big driver of our market, and I guess that's fair enough. And it's, you know, it's always going well until it's not. I think this year we have seen a few examples where the house of cards suddenly is collapsing with Celsius, Voyager, and all these other big names. You know, I mean, didn't you see it coming, Sebastian?
So yeah, I kind of did. I wasn't invested in any of these names, but on the other hand, I wasn't short any of those names either. So, but yeah, I came of age right at the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, and I spent a lot of time trying to understand what happened there. And I understand it as an ecosystem of interdependent and over-leveraged players. And well, it was also hyper-optimized. And once one domino started falling, then that took down a lot of others. And I could see that repeating in the DeFi space, during the last few years, and I was afraid that it was all going to blow up, and that when one did, multiple others would, and so we have to take some serious learnings from that, and understand that leverage, too much leverage, is dangerous, and will always be so, no matter how clever your protocols or architecture. It's just the nature of things.
Yeah, over-leveraging is actually, for me, always kind of the word to explain financial systems of the last 20 years. Since at least I kind of started in looking into trading and, you know, how stock markets work. I mean, is that ever going away, Brian? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think it's human nature. I think that you cannot have a functioning society or financial system without leverage. How many people here can buy their houses in cash? If you can, good for you, but you will be the minority, right? So there will always be a need for leverage. There will always be a need for credit. That's one thing that the blockchain space may need to think about a little bit more. The important question is, how do you ensure that this credit is not overextended? And as Sebastian has said, in the traditional financial space, which I spent a lot of time working on as a regulator in the post-crisis, there's a lot of work done to make it a lot less interesting and leveraged. The work that the Financial Stability Board, et cetera, to ensure that there's financial stability. Those kind of coordinating mechanisms don't exist in the virtual asset space, right? They don't exist in the crypto space. I'm not sure that there will be a lot of comfort if they do start existing in the crypto space, because it tends to place, let's put it, some constraints on the amount of innovation that you're able to run with. And I'm not sure everybody will be convinced about the value of the trade-off on there. Nevertheless, if you really do want to deal with the issues of systemic over-leverage, of ensuring that there's transparency, of being able to identify gaps where these things can happen, there will need to be some level of oversight, whether that comes from the industry, or whether that comes from the government, or whether that comes from a combination of two. I suspect will depend on the size of the next blow-up.
I think you might be right, but one of the, I think, big benefits that DeFi has is that it wasn't systemic, right?
Right, absolutely.
It has shrunk. A lot of people have lost a lot of money, but it didn't bring down the rest of the financial system. And I think maybe part of the explanation is because it wasn't regulated, and there was no moral hazard, right? There was no protocol that was too big to fail. And so, there is a backside to regulation that only the biggest players can afford to invest in the compliance necessary, as well as with time, there's regulatory capture, yeah. So I think we should be really careful about regulation, even though it's really painful when a lot of people lose a lot of money.
I think you're absolutely right. If I could just jump in there, I think you're absolutely right. The cost of compliance is an understated cost in terms of traditional financial services. And to some extent, that's one of the advantages that we see in the virtual asset space. Because of the capabilities of blockchain and DeFi to be more transparent, the cost of gathering the data that you need to have effective supervision goes down, right? So that is actually one of the interesting advantages in this area. The ability to link things together in a composable way that's understandable, that's predictable, so that you have some ability to maintain supervision without increasing the cost. Yep. I think that's going to be something to run through. But I think I've taken time off.
Actually, no, you guys, I love this. This is fantastic. You raised a really good point earlier, which I think feeds into this. Greed. Now, I think greed is good. I think greed is a good thing. But here is where I think we enter this DeFi realm. I want to be greedy with my money. That's the reality of it. The minute you take $1 or you take a dirham and you inject it with steroids, people want their money to do more. But when we get into the atypical banking industry or the atypical finance world, as a comparison to DeFi, somebody else is being greedy with your money. And I think that's where people get nervous. And I think that's where people like the concept of decentralization, because I get to do what I want with my money. And the particular example that you said earlier, I think to walk around with a t-shirt that says banks are not your friends, and then it turns out that, you're not also my friend, I think that's fundamentally messed up. I think that's playing to people's want to be greedy, which I think we can all agree is a good thing, and saying, well, no, we're not like them, we're different, and then turning out to be, well, not quite the same, but just as bad, is fundamentally messed up. And I think that is what drives DeFi. I think the ability for people to go back in time and deal with their money how they want is what a lot of people really want. Yeah. I don't need somebody else touching my money. I don't need somebody else investing my money. I don't need somebody else leveraging it or doing goodness knows what with it. If I go to an ATM, I want to be able to get it out. And I think a lot of us think that's the fundamental. It's my money. I should be able to use it and get it. But when somebody else plays with it, that's when I think the drive and the want for decentralization, for peer-to-peer, for us all working together, is what drives this particular topic in this particular industry.
Yeah, you're raising a fantastic point, and I got to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen it a million times. It's such a stretch if you are building something and you constantly come to the point where you have to make trade-offs, right? Yeah. And kind of you always, like you coming from, you're riding the white horse, and you always believe you're that guy who is kind of, fighting the banks and fighting the evil, and suddenly you become the evil without even realizing it. I think we have seen that a million times in crypto, and it's super hard. You need people to constantly challenge you and really to hold the mirror in front of you and say, here, this is what you have become. Yeah. And I think most people didn't realize that, right? It's kind of where shit hit the fan. big time this year. I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, in the atypical world, we have regulators, and regulators are a really good thing because they keep the checks and balances in place. If people want to do things together, peer-to-peer, DeFi, we have to accept the risk of that. We have to accept that person may not be who I thought they were. And some DeFi protocols institute governance protocols that enable conflicts resolution, right? They say, look, if something goes wrong, you come to us, we put it to a panel, the panel will decide. Again, I hate to tell you guys, that exists. That's called a jury. We've already got those. And so, I mean, there are ways and means of working together and making things more exciting. But I think, you know, like you said, it takes somebody, the way that DeFi works as a concept is because there are no regulators, innovators have to challenge each other. That's a reality. That's why both of you have said we're building metaverses, which is awesome. This is about the only industry in the world where you can go, I'm building one, oh, that's awesome, and I'm building one. And that doesn't instantly make you competitors, it makes you innovators. And that is what is so great about this particular industry, but it also means that we need to challenge each other and call out the BS when it lands.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of points I would like to go back, but you mentioned the metaverse, so kind of let's go a step further and really talk about the future of DeFi. I mentioned it at the beginning. For me, it's kind of all, you know, they say in crypto, if you look back, it was inevitable, and I feel this is exactly what we have seen in DeFi, which is basically, you know, you copy-paste what you've seen from the banking industry. Okay, I can open a bank account, I can send you Bitcoin, I can take out a loan, I can start staking something, I get interest rates, and now we're coming into, you know, the hell of finance with leveraging, with futures trading, and throwing it all together, right? Yeah. Then suddenly, in 2019, NFTs were kind of slowly starting to take off, really taking off last year, I would say. And now, again, the inevitable is happening. NFTs are becoming DeFi, and it's kind of melting all together, right? So, I mean, it's actually already happening that I can have a sword within a computer game or a land within a metaverse, and now I can put it into a contract. I can leverage myself up on that. I can take a US dollar loan, go out and buy an apartment in Dubai, cash on the table, right? So this stuff is already happening. I think, where do you see this going, Sebastian?
Yeah, so I love NFTs. It's an amazing new tool, and I think they have an integral part to play in the future of finance. If we remove the decentralized part there, and well, we're building a game right now in a metaverse, and we do have a lot of financial aspects to the game. That's part of being a human, I think, to trade. It's something that we've done since the Stone Age, and so that will always be reflected in the digital world, and I think that's just natural and good. When it comes to NFTs in particular, I think in 5 to 7 years, I think individual stocks will be NFTs. I think your medical records will be NFTs. I think your driver's license will be NFTs. And so all of these, valuable papers will be NFTs. And I do think they should be liberated from the silos that they are currently locked into. So, yeah.
Brian, would you agree with that? I kind of always wonder. I feel we kind of, like, we are learning, like, nerd vocabulary. Like, will people say NFTs in 3 years, or will it be just, you know, a digital item
I think
that has a technical name attached to it?
I actually think that that's what is going to happen, that you will see NFTs become ubiquitous, but nobody will call them NFTs. It's just, this is my degree. This is my driver's license. This is the collateral that I put down to get a loan so that I can build my business, right? They're just a digital asset. The technology is important because that's how you get the digital asset to run. But the use is more important than the technology. I think the one challenge that we will see with NFTs, and I think it's similar to as you said, right? There's an ongoing financialization of non-financial services, things such as gaming. And you're starting to get elements of trading, elements of staking in there. I think that, as you said, that's a natural progression. The challenge, I think, in the future will be understanding how you manage protections of the people who are using these services. What expectations will they have in terms of protection? So everybody expects in the stock market that if you trade the price of a share, right, nobody is out there trying to pump the price up or push the price down. And if they are, when they're caught, they'll be dealt with. That expectation doesn't exist in most NFT marketplaces. It doesn't exist in games, right? How do you bridge this gap in expectation when you are using the same technology, the same infrastructure, the same vocabulary in there? How do you bridge this gap in expectation? To me, I think that's going to be the real challenge going forward, at least in the NFT space. In the DeFi space, actually, I think it's much simpler. In the DeFi space, I actually think that the institutions are going to start adopting DeFi significantly more. It is a way of ensuring that they can get exposure to virtual assets in a potentially safer way that's more well-tracked than engaging perhaps with on a peer-to-peer basis. So actually, I think the future for DeFi, the logic behind it, how it works, etc., is very attractive to traditional finance. I expect there to be a lot more integration in the next 5 years. But it's going to take more than that when looking at the work that you're doing and you're doing, Sebastian, in terms of metaverse, how you deal with the differences in expectation, how you get people to start thinking about that and saying, okay, I'm fine without protection here, but I'm fine with protection here. Gonna be difficult.
Sure.
It'll be a challenge.
Yeah. Good point, yeah. You said actually one thing I really click with, because this is always the way I kind of explain DeFi, as you said, it's my passport. It's like, this is my water bottle now, because I just grabbed it from the table. You can try to take it away from me,
Go.
Let's go. But I think this is exactly the thing that kind of now with this, call it NFT or whatever, it's like we start to value the original version of a digital good, right? Which before kind of the whole history of the internet was the history of copied digital items, right? I send you a mail, now I have a copy, or Microsoft or Google has a copy, and you have a copy on your servers, right? So now, and this is actually where this stuff becomes interesting, and where I assume as a lawyer, you kind of get really excited, because now we can attach all kinds of rights to it, right? Isn't that kind of where the future of this is going?
As a lawyer, I'm dead inside. I want to be perfectly clear to everybody. There's nothing that excites me anymore. No, but on a serious note, look, NFTs as collectibles, I think are awesome. I really mean that. I think it lends to the technology set, and there will always be collectible NFTs. As a gaming geek, as a nerd, I saw WoW, I've seen PUBG, I've gone into marketplaces, I've bought skins, I've paid money for it. Where there are collectibles, there will always be collectors. I mean, that's a thing, it's a thing. Yeah. Where I think NFTs will come into their own, Brian, I think you were spot on with this. I always use the analogy of the motor vehicle. 83% of people own a motor vehicle, 13% of people know how the combustion engine works. They just get in their car and they just drive. And that's what NFTs will organically do. They will take over as a technology set for a lot of the things that we do day to day. Like you say, your passport, like use blockchain technology, place it on an NFT and actually have it verified. Your driver's license, your medical records, the things you buy in online stores. Why would they not be NFTs? For those of us who understand the technology set, we instantly go, this is what it's designed for, this is perfect. And of course, unfortunately, people that don't understand that are still in the 1.0 version of NFTs, like, what, you bought a digital picture of a monkey and you're keeping it. Like, they don't understand the difference. So once we get out of that collectibles phase, which is very cool, which, has organically grown and is awesome, that won't die. It'll just shift into a split of functional NFTs and collectible NFTs.
Yeah, great point. Guys, we have 5 minutes left. I would really like to touch one last point where I personally see a lot of DeFi being in 1 year or being in the future, which is like all these popping up of different protocols. We call it, we used to call it layer 1 and layer 2. Now there's layer 0, there's layer 3. And I mean, there's a constant stream of new technologies coming out there. I'm not even judging that. I see a lot of great tech being built, but for me, the inevitable future is that it all doesn't matter. I mean, me as a user, I'm sending you money from one to another chain, from one to another layer. We just use what is there, and there will be kind of, hopefully, soon these integrating solutions where me as a customer don't even have to care, because it's friggin' hard to transfer my ETH from Arbitrum to Optimism back to Ethereum on Solana. It's like how many steps do I have to do? So, what is your take on these things, Sebastian? You go first.
Yeah, let a thousand flowers bloom. I mean, I love innovation, and from an outsider's perspective, and even from an insider, it sometimes is overwhelming, or a lot of times, all of the new names and the new approaches, and I think just like you, that the consumer in the end doesn't care the name or the particular engineering features of an underlying technology. They sit in the car and they drive it. They don't need to know about the camshafts or the number of cylinders and so on. But I think we need to let this process run, and there will be some winners and a lot of losers, and that's the nature of innovation and the history of technology. It's just fun and good that there are so many projects going on.
Good point. Brian, do you see anyone leading kind of in that space or coming out with solutions that make it easier for everybody?
Interestingly, I suspect that will be driven by TradFi, not by the blockchain space. And the reason that will be driven by TradFi and not the blockchain space is because, and I'm a programmer, I've been a programmer 25 years, right? Programmers focus on technology. They don't focus on use cases. They don't focus on how things are being used. They focus on how things are being done. And this ties in exactly with what Sebastian said. The audience doesn't care about the technology. They care about how you use the technology. Exactly as you said, Sebastian, you don't care what underlies Ether. You want to be able to do the value transfer. And I think the traditional financial institutions understand this very well and understand the opportunity there to generate revenue, to tap on your discussion about greed, and the ability there to reach out and both reassure an audience that their monies will be taken care of and manage the technology for dealing with this. So I think that the experience that I don't see any specific technology taking the lead, but I do think the industry, the traditional industry, will start moving in now that value has been shown to exist.
Yeah, I got a big crocodile tear in my eyes now because I really have to agree that most likely it's going to be TradFi. It's going to be a company that hires a UX designer and a company that is hiring a product lead to come out with a product that kind of makes sense and that is fun to use. I sadly agree on that. Yeah. What do you think, Cal? Where is that going? What will be?
Where is DeFi going? What is it going to become? I mean, look, governance protocols vary in everything we do. Whether it's politics, you got capitalism, socialism, communism, the Borg, Star Trek fans. What does DeFi look like? How does it operate as a governance protocol? We haven't really answered that question, but I think as things grow, you'll see different emerging models as to, well, look, we deal with things this way. Well, that's cool, we deal with things this way. The same as you see different metaverses coming about, different ways that people want to interact in a new visualized world, you'll see different governance protocols, how people want to interact with each other. Yep. But the really cool thing about that is, and the thing I love about DeFi and the thing I love about this space is, it's all good. Like everybody gets to try it. And Sebastian, like you say, some will die and some will live, and that's just survival of the fittest. That's technology, and that's great. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot more, for an expression to use, clanning. I think people will like their governance protocol, and I think technology sets will more align with different governance protocols as we go forward, and the two will kind of go together in harmony until a victor is declared by unanimous majority.
Fantastic point. You bring up the whole governance topic. I see there's 1 minute left on our watch. We better don't go there for now. But we will be soon here on TresCon. Guys, I thank you very much. If you have any last comments, feel free. Otherwise, it was lovely talking to you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.